Good morning, welcome to the studio. It is Friday, January 25th already. It's like 25 days into the new year, and today we are talking FreeEdit Friday. This is a segment that I just started last week where I'm going to start talking about tech tips and basics of video production, videography, just anything that's basic to creating content. And the reason why I'm starting here is this is what kind of got my interest was seeing creators, people who were just starting to create content online, seeing them share what they were learning along their journey. And so I just want to kind of give that back. I hope that somebody out there would be able to take advantage of any of the information that I've learned that I want to share and pass on to you guys. So today we are going to talk about the basics of Premiere Pro. Now let me take a step back and explain why I use the Adobe software instead of using Final Cut Pro, because I am on a MacBook. A lot of people ask me, like, why would you use Final Cut Pro? Or instead of using Camtasia, which is by TechSmith. It's a very good program, really good screen capture program. I actually use it for my corporate work as well. But I use Adobe Premiere Pro primarily because it is an entire ecosystem of creativity. So it's everything. Everything from speed grading to video production to graphics animation to character animators to photography and Lightroom and Photoshop, and it is a full suite. As a matter of fact, the hyperlapse yesterday that you saw, in order to produce that and make that handheld version, I used Lightroom to color grade and adjust and fix those images so I got the best quality image that I could. Then I used Premiere Pro in order to stitch all of that together. And then I used After Effects to add a little bit more stability to it because you're able to track better in After Effects. It wasn't a lot, but it was just a tiny bit. And if you notice in that clip, there is one image that's like out of alignment because I didn't line it up very well. And I tried so hard to get the computer to move for that or adjust for that, but it was just too much. The whole building jumped down, so I left that one image sort of out of place. And it kind of stunk, but if I took that image out, it was really weird. It looked like the building like skipped over, like it was crazy. So the point is, it's an entire ecosystem that allows you to create whenever you feel like creating. Think of it this way. If you have a small box of 16 crayons, that's nice. But we all know what it's like to have the big box of 64 crayons. Because with that many colors, sky's the limit. There's nothing that you would color that you wouldn't have a color for, really. I mean, close. But 64 colors is definitely better than 16 colors, which is why I use Adobe Premiere Pro, because it's an entire ecosystem, not just a single one-trick pony. So let's talk about the primary place that I live in the Adobe Premiere suite, and that's Adobe Premiere Pro. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just gonna use a piece of drone footage from Pittsburgh, I believe. If you look at the layout here again, you've got Open Premiere Pro Rush project, which this is super cool. They just added this. So Premiere Pro Rush is something that you can use on your phone, on your iPad, and you can edit on the fly. So as I travel and do those types of things, I can begin the editing process in Rush, and then I can pull it into Premiere Pro, and then I can link it through to everything like after. It's super cool. All right, back into Adobe Premiere Pro. When you click on this new project, it opens up a dialog box. And so this is where you would name your project. You would be able to browse to the location you want to store your project. And there's some basic stuff that I want to hit on here. So there's general, scratch, disk settings, and ingest settings. All of these are important. You learn them over time. Typically, I leave it as a default when I'm doing this. However, on occasion, I might want to, for example, if I know it's a large project and I want to have a dedicated hard drive, or I do have a dedicated external, like a little Samsung solid state. So if I want to use that as like the dedicated place because my hard drive's full or something's going on, I can change where all of the scratch or all of the excess files that Adobe Premiere Pro is going to create, I can put it all into one folder that I choose. Then also on ingest settings, this is very important because in ingest settings, you can actually change the type of files that Adobe creates when it pulls the files in. So where is this important? When you're working with 4K files, which I've done several times before, you want your your computer to create what's called a proxy. And I will talk about proxies in a later FreeEdit, but proxy allows your computer to work on a very big file by producing smaller files that represent them. Then you can turn the proxies off and on. I'm gonna get to more of those things later, but that's the basics of this. For today, I actually already created our file just for the sake of the tutorial. So you'll see right here, tutorial drone. So I'll click on that. Straight out of the gate, I just want to talk about the fact that you can very quickly change the layout in Adobe Premiere Pro. And I'm not going to do much editing. I'm just going to pull in a clip so you can see what everything looks like today. So if you look at Premiere Pro, you've got a learning layout. So this is where you could come and learn all kinds of new things. You have an assembly layout, which is where you would be able to assemble your files if you wanted to. You have editing, which is where you're going to be able to edit up your timeline, and that's pretty much the default, or the classic default, I should say. You have color grading space, so this is going to bring up all of your color grading tools and resources. You have effects, which is going to enable all of your effects resources to pop up to the top and give you more room in your effects panel to do things that you need to do. Audio is going to move around everything and open up those basic audio controls. Then you've got graphics, which is going to open up all your graphics panel, which is where you're going to be able to create your text and titles, things like that. In your animations that way. Then you've got libraries, which is going to give you all of the different things that are inside of your Adobe library. And then you have all panels, and then you can actually create your own workspaces. And so typically I work in all panels, and the reason why I do that is because it's not very hard to move things around. Occasionally I will flip over to something like assembly if I'm working with a lot of files and I need to move things around, I need to see everything I have, I'll do that. But again, I typically work in the all panels space because I can see everything that I need to see. And then if I need to move around, I can quickly click at the top and go where I need to go. So a couple quick things. There are a few different quadrants here. You've got on the top left, this is where you're going to be able to see your source file. So I'll show you that in a second. This is where you're going to see your actual program file or your reference file. You're going to have your project media bin, which is where all of your media is going to be, and this is your timeline, and here in between are your tools. Then on the right side are all of your effects and presets, color, graphics, all of those things that you would use. And that's one of the reasons I work in the all space, because I can come click whatever I need very quickly on the right panel, as you see here. For example, lumetri color, those types of things. So let's import a file here. So there's a couple ways that you can do that. You can go to File and you can go Import. You can double click inside of this import here. You can use Control-I, and I'm just gonna say I like to use keyboard shortcuts because it just makes your production much faster. So I'm gonna hit Control-I, and that'll navigate out to your Finder or Explorer if you're on Windows. And I'm going to navigate to our external hard drive, to our tutorial folder, and then I'm gonna click on drone, and I've got a clip here from Pittsburgh. So I'm just gonna import that in. And so let me talk about a very critical thing about how most editors work, Premiere Pro especially. It's going to import a reference to the file. So I'm going to show you something very quickly that I learned very early on. I'm going to go out to my Finder and I'm going to go to our drone folder where we had that file, that drone file, and I'm actually going to delete that file, and I'll put it back, don't worry. So when I deleted that file, you're going to notice that Adobe Premiere Pro here pops up and says, the media is missing. Now, I know that I have that file somewhere else on the hard drive. Let's say I moved it to a different location. All you have to do to fix that problem is locate that file inside of your project media bins, inside of your finders. So I know I have that inside of my client work. I have a drone folder. This is something I'm doing for them. And if you notice at the very top up here, it's going to tell you what file you're trying to find. So it's DJI 0053. So that's very nice because now I can just type in 0053 and there you go. It found the clip for me. I can select that, click OK, and it's going to reassociate that. So no matter what I've done on all my edits, I can go back and get that original root file and it'll put all of that stuff back together for you. So when you're editing inside of Premiere Pro, you do not have to worry, like many people that I train, that, oh my gosh, I broke it. You don't have to worry about it. Adobe points to a file. As long as you don't delete the files, keep all those files, you will be able to point back to them at some point in the future. All right, so let's talk about how we get this into our timeline. what I typically do is I make sure that what I'm shooting in my camera is what I want my sequence to be. Let me explain why. If I clicked and dragged this right to this section here, it is going to create a sequence automatically based on the parameters of the clip itself. So if you look, you'll see that this sequence that started here is actually named the same as this, but that's no big deal. I can click in here and just name this production, which is what I typically name mine, with a capital T. And then you'll notice that it is 24 frames a second. As I scroll through, everything is the same. It's 3840 by 2160 and everything is the same. So effectively, when you drag and drop your clip, that's all gonna stay the same. Now where it gets a little weird is I'm gonna import another clip here real quickly from yesterday's vlog. Okay, now I know this clip was shot in 1920 by 1080. So here's our clip. If you look up here, I'll double click and there it is. It's me getting my coffee. I'm actually gonna mute this. So if I take a section of this, or I take this video and I go to drag it inside of this timeline, it's going to pull that in as a much smaller image. So this is the difference between 1920 by 1080 or 1080p and 4K. Look at the size difference. It's much bigger in 4K. So that is important to know. The other way is if I were to create a sequence, which I'm gonna do with that 1080 file, and now I take this 4K file and I go to drop it in, it is going to be the exact opposite. It's saying, oh my word, this thing is huge. And so this is actually how I typically work. I like to work 1080p. Then I would be able to take and resize that to fit the screen, and it would be much higher resolution. There's a couple ways you can fit it to the screen. What I just did there was actually try to scale it, or you can just right click on it and choose scale to frame, and it'll scale it right to the frame size that you need it to be. So it's perfect, and it leaves the scale properties at 100. Why that's important? Because maybe I want to punch into this. So maybe I want over time to be able to scale into this. Well, let's see if I can find a good piece of this. There you go. So as it's panning like that, let's say I want to zoom in on the city. The way that I can do that is if I click on this, and you come up here to your effects panel. So I'm going to put a keyframe here on scale and position. Now I'm going to scrub through the video to where I want to be, and you'll notice that it kind of kicks out, and I want to zoom more back in on the other side. So I'm going to drop another keyframe here, and I'm going to zoom in, and because it's 4K on a 1080 frame, I can zoom in effectively 4 times, something like that. And now I can position this where I want it to be. Make sure that I don't have any black exposure there at the top. Make sure my framing is good. And so now as we play that back, you'll see that it's slowly going to start to pull into that skyline for us. So it's zooming in effectively. And we're not going to lose any resolution quality in the final production once we spit this out into our encoder. So there you go. There you have it. This as time goes on, and I'm actually going to try and create a very systematic approach on how to get in here and how to do this. And I want to create some tools. Okay, so that's it for the tutorial today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Quick note on the vlog that I'm posting up here. Joe Brown commented, this was 2 days ago, it was the no neutral interactions. Joe commented and said, "It is very relevant and I love what you're doing. I can really see you doing a big seminar. You have so much information to give that is valuable to a lot of people's lives." And my comment to that was, seminar? Like, okay, I trust you, Joe. I believe you, and thank you so much for the comment. Thank you guys for subscribing, for watching, for being here. I hope that this basic introduction into Adobe Premiere Pro was interesting. Let me know in the comments below if you thought it was, or if you think I should do something else. I know that Ian, you had asked for some basics on cameras. I'm also going to talk about that. So thank you guys for being here. Make sure you guys click the subscribe button. I'm almost to that 200 goal. It's been a goal of mine for a little while, and I know you guys can help me get there by clicking that subscribe button. Click the bell if you want notifications on all the videos that I'm producing. And with that, have yourselves a really good Friday. All right, guys, till tomorrow.